Welcome everyone to a class we're calling Using the Estimate After the Bid. This year I was just saying to my friend down here in the front row that we tried something a little bit different this year where, a lot of you guys have probably seen me already in the last day and a half, but I go around and implement a lot of people across the country, and what I found as I go across the country is a lot of people need a little bit of help or some advice on operations. And one of the things that I've gained out of this experience with HCSS is that I get to go around to, and just in the last 24 days I've been in Oregon, California, Massachusetts, Philadelphia, New York, Minnesota, and now I'm here on day 24, 25 here in Houston. Go home tomorrow for 65 hours. I'll be in Fresno on Monday if anyone wants to come over and see me there. But we get a nice national footprint across the country of how everyone operates, and it's been a lot of fun for me and have learned a lot. And within my career of 25 years of being in heavy construction, I picked up some things along the way, being an owner and a divisional manager, an estimator, and a project engineer, and a janitor, all those things. And this is just one thing I suggested we ought to try to just throw out there, and is just see if we can help improve people's operations on how we hand off the estimate to the project management team. And this is supposed to be a session like all the rest, where this is all about your experience here and making it better. So if you have things to throw out about how you do it in your operation you want to share, just please bark them out, and we can make this an open discussion. So, okay, here we go. Okay, objectives. It's not only about winning on bid day, look downstream. Prepare the estimate with these things in mind. There's a term here, escrow, which you guys have probably heard about it when you get a mortgage for your home and you buy a home. That is where you hear the term escrow. It also can be used in construction for documents. Ease of use by the field team is something else you should be considering when you're producing these estimates. It's not just about you and what you're producing, but how the guys are going to use it downstream. Otherwise, it's just not nearly as efficient as it could be. We're going to talk about having an estimate handoff meeting and how that should go down, at least in my opinion. I'm sure you guys do them in a different way. If you do them, I would suggest you do. It gets the information out of the estimator's head, out of his or her head, and gets it into the field teams. And then lastly, we have the ability in heavy bid to do cost to complete forecasting. Really important for the financial team back in corporate to know where you're at on your job so they can make proper projections or cost to complete analyses themselves to report back to the surety or the owner, or make cash flow projections, things like that for the daily operations of your company. So escrow Q&A. Has anyone ever escrowed a bid before? So not so many. I've had it required and we've just done it. But if you don't know what it is, escrowing a bid is putting the bid docs in a protected place. And by that I mean that not protecting it from fire or anything like that. I mean that put it in a safe place where if someone wants to look at it down the line, you'll have a place to put it, and it will have been in a place where it wasn't tampered with or contaminated. Where do I escrow my bid? We put it in a bank. I've heard other people put it in an attorney's office, which is supposed to be a neutral place. You can put it in there, but keep it neutral wherever you go. Don't necessarily put it in your attorney's office or their attorney's office. Put it in a neutral location if you can. And lastly, when do I escrow my bid? I think as soon as possible. You bid the job today at 2, after you get back from the bar because you won the job and you wake up the next morning, do it then. And then put it in there within 24 hours. It may help you a year down the road as far as being able to show that, hey, I didn't mess with these numbers. This is the job as I bid it. This is what I had in the bid. This is what I didn't have in the bid, whatever. So the big question is, why would I escrow a bid? And I've touched upon that here in the last minute or so. But I got a couple examples here of why you would want to escrow a bid. A lot of times it's a client requirement. I've done them on public jobs. I've done it on private work as well. But if it's a requirement, then obviously you have to put it in a bank vault or in a safety deposit box or whatever it may be. The second reason why you would want to do it is for your own use, for dispute resolution, is why we've used it in the past. You can click there, Blake. So here's 3 examples of disputes which have applied to me in some way or another. Here's an example, specs. Estimator, one of my buddies from Hawaii here, Joseph in the front line. He's an estimator out of Maui, and he estimated the job, and he didn't include cure. And every owner is going to tell you, every owner is going to say, Joseph's going to say, hey, the cure wasn't in the specs, I didn't bid it. And every owner in this room, everyone you work for, the owner's going to say, well, everyone knows to cure concrete. Well, I don't care. It didn't say to cure the concrete. I didn't cure the concrete. I'm in a low bid atmosphere where low bid wins. And if I've got to be low bid and you didn't list cure, then I didn't put it in the bid. It sure would be nice to be able to if you had to, especially when your lawyer is going to have a claim to help you with a year down the road. It's going to be helpful if you can bust out that bid that you did 6 months ago, now that you're pouring concrete, and be able to say, look, here's my heavy bid estimate. Didn't have cure in there. Another example is sole source. Hey, Mr. Owner, your material wasn't available per spec. Here's my quote from your vendor, Sumitomo Pumps on Sand Island in Hawaii, which is the job I was on, where we went to their sole source supplier. They had stuff, they didn't have stuff. And so we got in a beef with them. We had to prove that something was in there or wasn't. When you're buying a $8 million pump package and there's $100,000 of stuff which is in there or isn't, it sure is nice to be able to pull out the quote you had at bid time on their letterhead with the person they spec to say that, hey, we didn't screw it up. You, Mr. Engineer, you didn't tell them to put in spare parts, seal rings, whatever it might have been. Very helpful for you to be able to go back and say, hey, this is what he quoted. I bought from the guy you told me to buy from, and here's the actual quote. Lastly, drawings. This is another example. This is a real-life example. 4 inches of subbase. We had a large slab on grade, as they called it. To me, it was a floating slab. We had a whole bunch of piles on a 10-foot grid, and that entire slab was held by the piles, and there was no need to have rock there but for an actual walking surface to survive in the mud. We didn't have whatever it was, 4 inches or 6 inches of rock under there. It's $150,000. So the way we got around that and the way we got paid for it was we all had a little party, went down into the bank, got the nuclear key, double key thing, opened it up, and then went in there and pulled out the bid, opened up the 3-ring binder, and sure enough, we didn't have the rock in there. And we got the $150,000. Would have been nice if they had those 2 keys on that missile command thing the other day in Hawaii. I wasn't there, but were you there? Yeah, yeah. Anyway, so let's see. It's not all about me. That's what you should be saying to yourself. It's not all about me. As the estimator, you're one phase of building this company and building out the projects. And so it's not all about me, you should be saying that to yourself in the mirror when you wake up every morning. Because after you finish this product, you have to hand it off to the field team, and they got to go out and make money. Everyone knows that it's easy to build on paper, but the guys out in the field got to be able to build it for the price you said could be done. Because don't forget, you were the idiot who was cheaper than everyone else on the job and said it could be done for that price. So hopefully you put together a good bid so everyone can follow along. Write for your users. So write for your review team before the bid. Now we have to go through and review the bid. Let's make sure there are a lot of notes in there, and you can go through and read it, and it makes a lot of sense. It's built logically. Write it for your builders after the bid. The boys and girls out in the field who are going to lay this pipe and put down the slab on grade. And then if you get to it, like a lot of jobs go, claim pros. Write it in an extensive enough manner so that the claim pros can come in at $250 an hour and find stuff quickly. It's the worst thing that that can happen is you get in a claim situation, not only are you behind on cash flow because of an issue in the field, but then you're dumping out hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars to get some claim pro in there to help you out. Bid it how you build it. Bid it through activities in the sequence that you're going to build it. Don't pour the slab and then 3 activities later put down the rock. Because when you get out to that superintendent, there's probably one in the field. I talked to a guy at lunch who's coming out of the field and coming into estimating, and I'm sure he's struggling with this stuff where he's trying to find out how the budget's laid out. Because last time I checked, you don't pour the slab first and then just underpin in the rock somehow. But a lot of times you'll see that with numbering of activities and sequence of work. Next. So how can we do this in heavy bid? What are some of the tools we have in heavy bid to help our team be successful in the field with optimizing profit? We have parent-child bid items you can use. We have activity descriptions, obviously. We have notes. I'm sure you've all seen it. We have a function which I think came in the last year or two where you can put the note screen over on the right monitor. You can have your estimate on the left. I don't know if you all knew that, but you can keep the note screen open the whole time on the right monitor. And as you're working on the left in estimate entry, put the note in, hit Save Close, and keep the notes up the whole time. It'll keep populating in. You don't have to close out the note screen and then open it back up again every time. You can just keep it open the whole time. Proposal footnotes. If you don't use There's many examples you can use, but the most popular proposal we have is the customized proposal. There's a button on there called footnotes. When you go into summary and customized proposal, right there in the bottom right, there's a button which says footnotes. Go in there, put all your terms and conditions in there, and your master, and then you'll have those terms and conditions there on every single proposal you send out, and you can obviously modify them as needed. Spreadsheet calcs. I see some familiar faces. I think many of you were in the class we had earlier this morning on spreadsheet calcs. Spreadsheet calcs are great. You can do all your work in Excel. It's actually spreadsheet Garrett's Excel-like. You can do all your work in there, and all those notes come right into the cost report. Cost report classic, the cost report plus, it's all right there. So after the bid has been won, we go into estimate handoff mode. And before we mobilize the site, we're going to have a meeting to walk the project management team through the estimate. Now I'll be able to see on your faces if you're lying to me. Who has these meetings? Everyone's, yeah, some guy's pretty serious about the look. Don't mess with me, man. We do them. I did them half the time. I mean, let's get real. I always talk about it. You come back from meetings like this, and yeah, we're going to do them. Next, please, Blake. So the meeting. We're going to have a meeting to review the estimate. We're going to have a time. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to have a place. And the most important thing about any meeting, if you want the guys to come from the field, it can be beer, pizza, whatever. Pig, pineapple pizza we have in Hawaii, whatever. It all works. Everyone likes a snack. So you as the estimator, if you guys and gals are all estimators in here, you know best. The estimating team has had their nose in the documents for days, weeks, or months. The engineer had it in Hawaii. They're in there for 10 years. We get it today, and we got a bid a month from now, so the estimators have it for a month, and then we hand it off to the project management team, who's probably got to be laying pipe by next Tuesday. So it's important to take all the information you know as the estimator and then pass it on to the field team so we don't drop anything on the way. The estimator picked up or downloaded the plans and specifications. He or she read them. He or she took off the project, and then he or she estimated it. So your estimator is always going to be, probably throughout the entire job, is probably going to be most knowledgeable about the job. So you want to rely heavily on the estimator, not only on the handoff day, but throughout the estimate as well. Things to notate. So the next couple of slides I have in here are just things that I've picked up in my career. I jotted down here, but things that may appear obvious to you as the estimator, that superintendent or project manager who's picking up the job today and has got to go out there on Monday and start working, he's not going to pick up everything, and things which you thought were obvious may not be to him or her, whoever's running the job. So keep in mind the things that just be overly obvious on the notes you have to put in there. Track all of these items that we're getting ready to go through so you can maintain fee or you can improve it. We bid the job with 6%. You bring in a 12% job, not anyone in the company going to be complaining about that. And if you're in the field, that's your job, is to take the minimum profit and then increase it. So here are some things to record along the way as you're estimating. Okay, so here's one item. I got a couple of these slides here with some stuff. I think this is a good checklist you could just take home with you and start to write these things down and include them in your estimate. So dump sites. When you were estimating the job, was a deal made at bid time with a farmer to dump surplus dirt for free? That happens all the time. Import sources. Can we import rock as provided by another contractor, or a pit outside of our norm, or even as off-haul from another one of our own jobs? Common item, but a lot of times we don't always know where the rock's going to come from. But if you do a lot of heavy rock jobs or dirt work, that's where we make a lot of our money, selling ourselves dirt. Material changes. We bid ductile iron. Can we maybe build it in PVC? So that's a lot of times where a superintendent project manager can really come into play. Cash. During the handoff, cash management, cash flow, very vital to the company's operation. You want to make sure that anything that's going to affect the operation from a cash standpoint is brought to the attention of the project manager and the superintendent. This is an obvious one, right? Liquidated damages. Project milestones might be in there by the working day. I started my career in Pennsylvania, and we had a fiber optic line. It was $10,000 a minute. So you get everything from $10,000 a minute to $200 a day, whatever it may be. But if you don't pass that stuff on, which, hey, it was obvious, man. It was in the front end specs. How come you didn't see it? Well, man, why didn't you just point it out to me? You know. And now all of a sudden we're $3,000 in liquidated damages or whatever it may be. So unbalanced bid items. There's two items here. This one here, we just came from an unbalancing class, a lot of us in the room, and I was there too. John Sloat and I were teaching that class. Click it one more time, Blake. So we unbalance bid items for two main reasons. The first one here, cash flow. I will normally unbalance bid items because I want the job to be built in a certain way, or the job has to be built in a certain way. So we unbalance items in order to maximize cash flow. We had a job where we had a culvert that had to be built, which could have been built up front or built late. It was about a $600,000 culvert. Now I put a couple $100,000 on it and told the superintendent to go build that first, because that's where I had a lot of, not the profit, that's just where I moved the money so that the cash flow would be more beneficial to the company. So you want to point out how you've built the job as an estimator in order to maximize the cash flow coming in, to give you any chance of trying to maintain cash neutrality or positive cash flow on the project. The third item here, the second unbalanced item, is just quantity differences. We had an exhaustive class right before lunch on how to play that game of unbalancing the bids, but that's a place where you can make a lot of money or lose it if you don't do it right. So, but if there's a quantity which is going to overrun or underrun, and again, you guys were in the room for at least a month estimating the job, you took it off, you guys know how those jobs run. It's hair on fire the whole time. No one's going to take off the job. That's what you had to do as the estimator. And you better have a grip on this, and you better tell the team about what he should be chasing the inspector for. Hey, I took off the dirt. It's going to run over by 20%. Make sure you hit up the inspector for every last cubic yard you can get. We all do that. I'm not going to mince words. That's our job, is to take advantage of a client that made a mistake and those engineers out there that didn't do it right. Because don't tell them you don't like to rub their noses in it, because I certainly do. I'm a PE, by the way. But I'm not one of them. Okay, so design, delivery, and insurances. So other things you should be making notations of and be doing in the handoff. Design improvements. Talked about this earlier. Your superintendent can sell bolted joints instead of thrust blocks. For whatever reason, probably because when I landed on Oahu, they said, welcome to 1968. We use mega lugs and we use thrust blocks and we tie everything down, and probably some other municipalities do that across the board too. But we always try to go into mega lug mode and get the owner to buy off on that because we can save money on it. But think of design improvements, things that, hey, I had to bid this thing with these 12 cubic yard thrust blocks, but maybe we can just go mega lug because those cost $100 versus $10,000 or whatever it may be. So keep those things in mind. Also there at the end of the first one is form savers. So a lot of times we can use form savers if they're economical instead of doing splicing, especially in phase situations where you're trying to tie together an abutment on a bridge widening or something like that. It may be cost effective, schedule effective, if you don't have to dangle, a 4-foot splice bar over top of traffic or whatever, and you can just build the job a little bit differently. Long lead items. Lead times for procurement of material, valves, shiny metals, equipment. We had a job where we started underground. It was a pump station, had a 48-inch butterfly valve in the bottom. It was going to be, the second and a half month of the job we needed the valve. Of course, that wasn't going to be made for whatever it was, 4 months. But luckily, we did have a good handoff with our mechanical division there, and they advised us of the need for this specialty valve coming out of Germany or wherever it was. But that was really important to the project's success. We couldn't put a lid over the basement at ground level until we actually had the valve in place. Kind of hard to swing a 48-inch valve, through a whole bunch of shoring as you're going up 2 or 3 levels on a structure. Bonding and or insurances. There's a lot of things which hopefully you're catching as you're looking through the specifications. Hopefully you're reading the specifications and making notes as you go. Retention bond is one of them. This is another thing which we operated in 2 states. We operated in Washington and Hawaii. Hawaii, they don't know what a retention bond is, so anytime you bring it up, you just kind of get that, hey, bro, what you talking about? So that was never going to work there. But in Washington, we use it all the time. It's a minimal cost. If you get your project management team to call for the retention bond early in the job, you can get that extra 5% on every payment and maintain, again, a better cash flow. Consider that if it's doable. Builder's risk. We used to place builder's risk out in the field, and by that I mean that we handed the job off to the field team, and then the field team would call into ABC insurance agent and get the builder's risk policy. Another bad experience in my career was we were building a clarifier, and it was slightly underground, and the system we had for shoring, the way it was sheet piled around there, we ended up building the bowl for the clarifier. All the rain came in from outside and flooded outside of the sheet piles, between the dirt and the sheet piles, and then it got up under the clarifier and popped it, just like a cork. No builder's risk, complete loss. Had to rebuild the entire clarifier, at least just the bottom portion, the first pour in the wall. But huge loss. Pollution liability, that is a large cost. If you don't have it and you have a loss, that could be a major loss. Railroad insurance is another one. It's nice to advise or educate your project management team on builder's risk. Some jobs, when they extend, they require an extension of insurance, which requires more money. So a lot of times I have project management teams which they'll put another 3 months on the job, not knowing that someone back in the office is getting a call from the builder's risk company saying, oh, well, if you're going to extend another 3 months, because builder's risk is an insurance like that, where if you builder's risk, all their risk comes in at the end of the job where everything's in place and ready to go. And if you damage that brand new pump or you put a crack in the window, that's when all the risk is there for builder's risk, when everything is there and ready to take over. So when you start adding time onto the end of the job, you're extending the risk for at least the builder's risk policy, and you've got to actually be able to account for that in a change order situation. Maybe some education of your project management team would be helpful in a case like that, just so they know what builder's risk is. The job book. Who makes job books for their field team? Again, I'm biased. Standing up at the front, I get my own opinion. I think job books are awesome. And every superintendent I've ever talked to is like, man, I really wish I had one of those job books. This is what's called, for some of you guys, don't mean to beat on some of you 22-somethings, 25-year-olds, but this is called a 3-ring binder. I have a client in Honolulu, and I can't find a 3-hole punch or a stapler. But this is what we call a 3-ring binder. You punch holes in this paper here, and then you put all these reports in there. And superintendents and foremen, everyone I've ever talked to, they just love them. So I think this is a really great tool. We're going to go into heavy bid, and a lot of you have probably seen these. I'm just going to show you where some of these reports are. But I think this is outstanding to make a job book and put one of your administrative assistants on this and just prepare this for every single bid. It takes an hour for someone to get it together in your office. You can give it to your foreman, have a backup copy for when he drops it down a manhole, and then you can have a backup copy and just hand it right back to him or her out in the field. Some reports you can consider here, the estimate recap report. This is the one where it has the entire bid on 2/3 of a piece of paper. This one here, estimate recap. Cost report plus or classic, 2 cost reports we have. The classic is just that. The cost report plus is the newer one, which has some color, has a little more, a little better layout, I think. Material sub-requirements is outstanding, I think, too. This lists all your 2s, your 3s, your 4s. If you use 5s, it lists those. And also lists what subcontractor or supplier you selected at bid time. These are just so easy to do with the print of a button and then a 3-hole punch, which they still have them in Office Depot, so you can get one there and you can make these together. This is called a binder. So I have one right here. Equipment by equipment is outstanding. Shows every single piece of gear on the job. This bid summary, cost, and price, I think, is a very good one. And this, for me, was always something I showed to the project manager or the superintendent. This one here, if you don't use it, the bid summary, cost, and price shows what the balance price should have been, $5, and then why, and then it lists that you priced it at $7. So someone's going to see, well, Scott estimated the job, and he put an additional $2 or whatever that is, an additional 40% on this item. Why did he do that? And you can go through and have a discussion with the estimator, the superintendent can, and figure out why that one's marked up. But you can see all those prices on one sheet of paper, or 2 or 3 or 4, however many sheets it is. But that shows really good on one piece of paper what is off balance and by how much. Activity summary report. Not one of my favorite reports, but a lot of people seem to like it. So if you don't know anything about it, click on it. A lot of people like it. Labor use is another popular one. And then queries. My personal vote for the most underutilized button probably in the system, queries. If you don't use queries, you can make any reports you want from there. You can export it to Excel. You can customize them for the system, customize them for just this estimate, or just for a user. But you can do it on a bid item level, an activity level, or a resource level. It's fantastic. What else we got, Blake? Cost to complete. So 2 components of cost to complete. revenue and cost. Revenue is money you take in. Cost is money you spend out. Revenue is not profit. Revenue is the amount of money you get in. You have a $10 million job, you're going to collect $10 million, and all the money you pay out of that is called cost, and the difference is called profit. They're simple concepts, but I go on site. I had a client ask me once what a budget was. Thought, oh my God, you just bought a Ferrari. I came out here with heavy bid. You just bought a Ferrari system here, and you guys are asking me about budget. And hopefully they're doing well. They seem to be doing okay. So the way we can actually bring this down and we can use this after the fact when we're running the job, we can always track revenue by going to the bid pricing screen, into the poker chip screen, and then we can always track cost or produce a WIP for our CFO, a work in progress, as far as how much more money I have to spend to complete the job. We can do that via estimate entry. We can just go in there and we can just change the quantities which haven't been done yet or the quantities which have been done, and it should spit out a cost to complete. This is not perfect, and this is not accounting. If you have one of these if you have an accounting system, whatever it may be, Viewpoint, QuickBooks, Sage, Coins, you name it, there's 10 solid ones that I seem to run into here and there everywhere. That is the place where I call it the Bible, in that that's where all the true costs reside. The danger with at least doing a WIP or a cost to complete and heavy bid is it makes the assumption that you didn't screw up the estimate. You know? When the world thought we can get 600 feet a day of pipe, what idiot estimated that? So if you're saying the rest of the job is going to be laid at 600 feet a day, maybe your cost projection isn't correct. So I say this is a tool available, and you can use it that way, and some people do, but be advised, this is all based on your estimate. So let's look through the software a little bit, and I'll show you some places which you may already know exist as far as creating notes. Are there any questions, comments? Share with your buddy across the room, as far as what we do at our company, or it's meant to be interactive. Scott, you're full of poo. Okay. All right, so let's see. Did you go into one page? I can't see.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's see. So one of the reports we have, which you can use, is up there under reports, under cost reports. Down at the very bottom of cost reports is notes. So here we have an option at the top. It's not checked. We can go ahead and check it, Blake. There are bid item pricing notes. You can hit print. So you guys have all seen these notes, probably in the Cost Report Classic or like I said before, in the Cost Report Plus. But this is just a note sheet where you can just include it. Just as an aside, I've included this sometimes in proposals to my clients. Just at least I had all the notes here, and at least it gave them a list of the assumptions. You take out some of this stuff, obviously, but you can put in notes about assumptions at an activity level or at a bid item level. And there's a couple other places you can put notes. So let's say on one page, you can X out of that, Blake. Let's go to, let's run Sigma real quick. And in the lower left, hit both those buttons because I'm always nervous about that. So here, let's go over to poker chips and to bid pricing. And let's go over to customize. And let's see. Sure, while you're there, so in the totals, let's go direct cost, indirect, add-ons total, balance total maybe? Yeah, I go nuts on this screen. Yeah, stay up there. Balance total, unit charges, let's go direct unit cost, and total unit cost, balanced price. Over on the far right, we'll add in status and remove balance bid difference. I think that's good for now. Let's just see how that pans out. So another example, so I look at this and I see, I'm looking at item 90 up there, hot mix asphalt type D. So I go over there, that one's going to overrun a little bit. It's got 35,000 tons. I'm going to price that at 33 bucks. And let's see, so I'm $31,000 over balance now. So now I'll just take that out. I'll just manually do it on my head and take it out of mobilization. So take 30 out of there, so that goes 192,000. So if I go back down, if I arrow down to that $33 item you just had, Blake, and in the lower left down here, there's a notes button we can hit, and we can put in the lower left here, notes. Yep. We can put a bid pricing note in here. Bid this item up because it's going to overrun, something like that. A bridge as you feel. There you go. So we can put that in there, and if you end up running that reports list again, under bid item, yeah, go ahead and cost reports and hit notes. Nice catch, excellent. So if you scroll down to item 90, there should be a note in there. Yeah, so now you have a note in there which says going to overrun. So that'll provide information to someone downstream as far as why it was bid higher. If you go back to the poker chips, you'll notice that when you hover over that item, this notes will go bold, so you can see there's a note in here. It's a little easier to tell on your screen versus on this map, but that's where the notes can be added in there, or you can at least see they're in there. Some other obvious things here. We can go to, let's go back to estimate entry. Yeah, sorry, I've been looking at my notes here.
Where your notes highlight, is there any way you just say yes or no? Where you change it to a different color? Sometimes even the bold escapes you.
Not obvious like the red and the yellow you see other places.
Yeah.
Not that I know of, unless Blake knows of something that I don't, and turning that notes other than bold.
I don't, but I'm getting it as a suggestion.
So if you haven't been here before, tomorrow morning town meeting, right? Heavy bid at whatever time. There'll be a point when the programmers are up there on stage and they'll start throwing out stuff, and that's when you say, can I turn that notes button red? And they'll say, who wants the note buttons red? And people who want it do this. People who really want it, like you, will do this. So they do listen to that. They do write it down. Blake will get this to the team, and we'll see if we can change that if it makes sense for us. So let's see. So back in here on 90, we'll just stay in item 90. Click on mainline paving. I think I'm telling everyone the obvious because everyone's on their second day. Everyone I run into seems to know heavy bid. So there's obvious places to put notes in here. We have bid item notes up here on the top. We can put a note in there. You can click in there and just put a note in there for the actual bid item saying asphalt runs down Main Street. And then we can go down and we can make a note under the activity just saying high production due to ease of access, something like that. And these are notes, and we've seen back on this notes report. Let's just go to the notes report one more time. So all these notes fall in here, and you see the spreadsheet calcs, but again, just a really good tool. So that was a spreadsheet calc we did on the last class this morning. And so all these notes will come in, just really great to put in the binder for the guys and the gals out there bidding it, out there building it. As far as doing a work in progress schedule, you can go in, let's just say, I'm not going to make a new copy just because of time, but if we won this job, one pave, and we're halfway through the job right now, we can go through on this actual estimate and progress it. I see some people do it. I'm a little weary of it only because this isn't my accounting system. And once we go back to estimate entry, Blake, and we actually start to go here and we start to knock off some of these quantities. So if we go down here and we say inlets on item 60, I've only got, you go in here and I change it to, here in the activity, just 4 each. So now we've only got 4 left to do. You see the problem here. It assumes that actually you did everything perfect. That's fine. It assumes you've done everything perfect and you only have this much money left to spend on the job. This doesn't account for the timing of your accounts payable. Doesn't account for the fact that labor has maybe changed because it's later. Now you're in the rainy season instead of the dry. Things like this all don't come into play in this work in progress schedule. So I think it's a great tool to use, but you just have to know what you're doing. You can go down to inlet type C and on the next item, item 70, and same thing there. You can just put 2 in there. So anyway, you can go through there and you can progress that whole thing. It gets a little difficult, I think, because you have all this rock in there, and how you're going to figure out how much rock has been bought off by the company already or how much rock is still sitting on the ground but hasn't been paid for. It just, I think, gets a little bit hairy. As far as being on the, so this would be a cost to complete. So here you could go and, like I said before, query. If you go up to query, just because a lot of people I don't think use this, you can just go up to activity. And so here we have the, in theory, here's the cost to complete the job. Or when you're actually estimating, this is a great button to use if you don't. So much information. You can right-click this and send it out to Excel. This is a real simple way to make budgets. I don't know if you went, I think, Aaron All's house, or maybe Gary taught a class on export to accounting, but I had another one where we were just talking about trying to set up a budget this way, but this is a really simple way not only to set up a budget, but in the case of maybe doing a cost to complete, a WIP, this is a good way to at least get close on how much money I have left to spend on the job. So another good tool for you here. So this has kind of been the cost side. If you want to look at the revenue side of the equation, you can just minimize that, Blake, thanks. And if we go to, let's go up to Sigma and run the bid summary, please. And then we'll go to bid pricing. So this is right-clickable out too. So you just have to find the right column. So he's over there, and Blake, if you just send that out to Excel. You could end up deleting F through M, columns F through M. Right-click delete. When I did all of my cost to completes, I usually would come in here and develop the actual bid unit prices, and I would go through here and I would project all the quantities we're going to receive on the job. I always did the revenue separate from how I did the cost. So I do this whole worksheet and I run this projection through. I get a projected income or projected revenue on the job of $2.938 million. I put that in one column for my CFO back in Seattle when I was working in Hawaii. Give that number to him, and then go and I would do a cost to complete either within our accounting system or you can use Heavy Bid. I'd like to say I use Heavy Bid, but we were in Heavy Bid and 2 other products, Excel being one of them, and we weren't that clean. So does anyone use this for a WIP system for a cost to complete? No one, really.
Created a spreadsheet by hand, but I just wrote down, I can do it a lot simpler.
Yeah, yeah. Daniel, you use it for cost to complete?
No, I just export. You gotta export that to Excel.
Yeah. Yeah. It does it, but it's like anything else. It can be a dangerous thing if you just take it without really studying it. So anyone who's ever done a perfect estimate, anyone tells me that in this room, they're just lying. None of us do. So I heard another guy say, I think this morning, it's not called an exactimate, it's called an estimate. So that's exactly what it is.
For, estimated cost complete, which you use your judgment.
Yeah.
So if you're halfway done and you realize you're overrunning, you estimate the rest of it at that new price.
Yeah, yeah. And I didn't do it, but normally what you would do is you would say, copy new, and you would create a new estimate and maybe call it, January 2018 projection and do it from there. But yeah, you're right. So, but it could be better too. I mean, if you ended up getting a better deal on rock, you had it in the bid at $10 a ton, and you bought it out for $8, you can make those changes too. So, I think it's definitely helpful. I think sureties like it, although they don't know how to read it, but at least you can show it to them and makes them sleep a little better at night.
For business, we're not in the business of making widgets, so to speak. So you've got a lot of people, a lot of hands in the cookie
Yeah.
And all those ripple effects that are associated with that. It's difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
You gotta be, a lot of times when you go to project job costs, it comes down to judgment and feel of where you think things are going. And, there's no substitute for job judgment.
Yeah. No, I would agree. A lot of people lie on those too. I mean, I don't think they do it on purpose, but it can be hard to predict. Can't predict the weather, and
And it's not always projected, but
yeah, yeah, it should never be really. But yeah, I don't know. It's the only business I know, but there's plenty of people in there who, we're not engineers, and they're pretty smart guys. But I mean, you look at this business and all the risks that's involved, and all the different costs between labor problems and weather and unions and cost of material availability. It's endless, the number of risks in the job. So a very complicated business, construction, I think. It's not by the hour like engineering. So, any other items? Any other comments?
Question for you. We've started over in the estimate tree an activity. If there's a quirky detail associated with an inlet, I'll have my guys go through, take a screenshot of the plan of that detail and attach it to the activity. And as we've been doing our handoffs, your foreman will go, why do you have twice as much stone in there? And you say, oh, here it is, it's attached. And you don't have to flip through the plans to get to that point. What page was it on again? But is there a way, you just showed the notes report. Is there a way to go through and print off everything that you've attached using the paperclip? Kind of as a quick summary.
Do you know that answer?
No.
This gentleman in
Someone
front
said yes, so.
Yeah, I think in the print, there is an option.
To print the attachments?
The reports, there is an option that you can print the attachments.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm like you, I know you can attach them there, but we'll look and I'll get the answer for you.
Okay.
I'd like to know myself, so I don't have to stand in front of 100 people and not know the answer. Sucks being the driver, sometimes it sucks being the speaker. Anything else? Only have 2 minutes left, and I was going to call it quits unless you guys have something else to provide. I don't see any hands going up. All righty, we guys get out 90 seconds early, so thanks for coming, and see you on the next one. Thank you.